Now, we need to take a good look at the seismic divorce that rocked the country in the last few days and may have changed our politics forever, because late last week, Floyd Shivambu left the Economic Freedom Fighters for Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto we Sizwe party. And the fallout has been crazy. EFF supporters have been stumbling around in a daze, sad, confused, torn, like children of divorce. And just like children of divorce, they want to know what went wrong. Whose side should they be on, mom or dad? And what happens next with Floyd Shivambu and Julius Malema? I'll let you decide for yourself who is mom and who is dad in this situation. And we have to start the story at the EFF press conference that took place on Thursday. The media had found out that morning that Shivambu had decided to leave the party. People were speculating that Red Floyd might have been pushed out of the party, maybe over his alleged links to the VBS scandal and his own brother's part in the bank looting. There had been rumors of a fallout between Shivambu and Malema before the election. But nobody, and I mean nobody, was prepared for the moment when Shivambu announced that he was joining the MK party at the EFF press conference in front of the EFF branding and banners and a miserable-looking ex, Julius Malema. It was mad. It was like breaking up with someone and telling them who your new lover is at the breakup. And then Shivambu said, oh, but I'm not going to talk about that now. I'll talk about MK matters at an MK press conference. But you already talked about it, Floyd. You didn't have to say it, but you said it. Imagine getting broken up with like this, like, hey, Michelle, it's over. It's not you, it's me. Also, I'm with Sarah now, and I'm going to her place after this. But now is not the time to talk about that. You'll find out about us on Instagram. That's basically what happened. That is some red flag behavior, Floyd. I would say literally, but you're not with the EFF anymore. Reports now claim that Floyd has been promised the MK presidency position with Jacob Zuma national chairperson and John Hlophe as deputy president. And some dazed and confused EFF tweeters immediately decided that this whole thing was a stroke of genius from Julius Malema. It was 4D chess, and the rest of us can't hope but to understand the mysterious ways of Julius Malema and how smart this move actually is. Apparently, according to these tweeters, Floyd has been sent ahead to MK to prepare the ground for an eventual EFF-MK party merger to compete as one party in the 2029 elections. But then, why didn't they just merge now or merge further down the line? Because, make no mistake, what just happened was seriously reputationally damaging to Julius Malema and the whole EFF project. And if they didn't have to do it, and it was going to cause all this damage, and it obviously was going to cause all this damage, then why would they do that? So, let's look at three key questions. What exactly happened? Why might this be a huge moment for the MK party? And why does Shivambu leaving seem so bad for the economic freedom fighters? The EFF is known as a one-man band, literally Malema and friends. And in many ways that is true, but from the beginning it was always Malema and Shivambu. They were together in the ANC Youth League days. Malema made Shivambu national spokesperson. Shivambu was a massive part of Malema's Youth League falling out with then President Jacob Zuma. At an infamous League conference in 2011, Zuma was giving a speech explaining South Africa's role in the fall of the Libyan government, and Shivambu reportedly shouted, "Unamanga, you're lying," loudly and repeatedly over and over again at the president of the ANC, the most powerful person in South Africa at the time. Zuma was furious and snapped back, "Utini baba, ukhuluma nami," which means, what did you say? Are you talking to me? And I have to say, love or hate Zuma, but that man has a way with words. He has bars. He literally said,
"You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?"
So that confrontation was part of the fallout that led to Malema and Shivambu being kicked out of the ANC Youth League. And if you had said then, in 2011, that Shivambu would one day be poached by Zuma's own party to become party president after heckling him during his speech, you would have been sent to a mental institution. But South Africa is crazy and unpredictable. And all reports indicated that Shivambu was the one, after all of that, who persuaded Julius Malema to start the EFF. Apparently, Shivambu figured out the EFF's ideology and made sure it was different enough from the ANC's ideology to be easy to identify as a new, different vision for the country, and Shivambu even allegedly picked red for the EFF's colors. The EFF then rose rapidly on Malema's riz, let's be honest. To quote iconic political analyst RuPaul, Malema's charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent put the EFF name in lights. And Shivambu was always there by his side, a devoted wingman, organizing the growth and infrastructural development of the party. Years passed, cuties came, cuties went, but nobody, not even the People's Bay and bona fide cutie Mbuyiseni and Ndlozi, threatened this bromance. But recently, things seem to be a little rocky, and there have been rumors about the star-crossed fighters, well, fighting. Earlier this year, Red Floyd headed up the EFF election campaign in KwaZulu-Natal, and then Malema recalled him very publicly because it was clearly going very, very badly, which was humiliating for Shivambu. The EFF went on to collapse in KZN from 9.71% of the vote to just 2.56% in the election. In 2024, they got just 26% of the vote share that they got in 2019 in KZN. That's not even a passing grade in Angie Motshekga's South Africa. And Shivambu took the fall for it, even though, if we're going to be honest, the surprise entry of MK totally changed the game in KZN, and that's not really his fault. And then, according to reports, Malema making Floyd the fall guy got Shivambu's people worried, because the EFF is known as a one-man band for a reason. It's Julius's party. He controls it with an iron fist, and members' fates are decided on his word. 1 minute you're a rising star, the next you're condemned to political backwaters. Just ask Naledi Chirwa. The EFF is truly Malema's empire, and he rules it like his namesake Julius Caesar did in Rome. He cut Ndlozi down to size when he was getting too much praise, and Shivambu's camp got worried that Shivambu might be next. But that was how Malema and Shivambu existed in the context of all that came before in the election, something about a coconut tree. And then, at the election, the EFF had a shocker. They shrank below 10% of the vote. Their narrative of being leaders in waiting, unstoppable, inevitable, was shattered. And then the GNU negotiations began, and the fighters insisted that any GNU, including the DA, was just white minority capital in government, and they would have no part in it. But they also had formal negotiations with the ANC anyway, and those negotiations, that team was led by Floyd Shivambu. And at one stage, it looked like he would get a deal that would get the EFF in government with powerful positions for EFF members. It looked like Floyd would become Deputy Finance Minister. But while the Floyd-led EFF delegation was negotiating, Malema engaged with Ramaphosa's camp directly without telling Floyd. Apparently, Julius demanded that he must become deputy president as part of any deal for the EFF to join the GNU. Ramaphosa's people said no. Julius said my way or the highway, and they took the highway, hit the N1, and pulled the EFF out of negotiations. Floyd was reportedly furious and felt disrespected by Malema for negotiating with Ramaphosa's team without consulting him or even telling him about it. And Floyd also felt undermined because it was his negotiation to lead, and then Malema scuppered it. The tension was simmering before, but this was the boiling point moment. Floyd made his announcement at the press conference, and Emperor Julius, he looked defeated. Like, he put up a brave face, but this truly felt like an et tu, Brute moment. Betrayed and stabbed in the back by his brother-in-arms, his bromance bro, and left him for the rival that ripped up EFF support in KZN, contributed to the EFF's election decline, and replaced them as the major opposition force. So now we know what happened. The second question is, why is this looking like a big win for MK? Because MK is a mess. Like, MK is a bigger mess than the Real Housewives of Durban. Since the election, they have been locked out of power and have become mired in scandals. They have fired and rehired leaders. They've chopped and changed MPs. They've got bad press from their botched attempt to take the IEC to court for alleged election rigging, for which they have no proof. They have got bad press over putting John Hlophe in Parliament and then on the Judicial Service Commission, since Hlophe is a former judge who was impeached and removed in disgrace due to trying to influence and intimidate constitutional court judges. And in a few by-elections since the national elections in May, MK have done poorly. Beyond Zuma, it is unclear what the party even is. And Zuma is getting on a bit. He's old. and he may not have the energy or interest to do much more political campaigning in years to come. MK needed a serious political heavyweight with experience building and managing parties from scratch. That's Floyd Shivambu. He's still a young leader with a huge following, name recognition, and political know-how. And this is a win for Floyd too. He goes from being second in command at the now fourth most powerful political party to president of the third most powerful. And he gets right out of Julius Malema's shadow for the first time. And this is one of the reasons why I personally am skeptical that this move is some kind of extraordinary genius 4D chess playing from Malema. Because why on earth would Floyd want to go ahead and prepare the ground for an MK-EFF merger and then allow a merger that puts him back in Malema's orbit under his spell? Wouldn't he rather want to make MK a solid party under his presidency and grow the party and make it even bigger than the EFF than it already is? And from all we know about Malema, he isn't interested in being anything but in charge. And if a merger is one day discussed, but MK is still significantly bigger than the EFF, they're going to come in as the power brokers in those negotiations. And will Julius Malema really accept a reduced or minor role in this newly merged party? I'm not sure, but we'll see. And all of this leads us to our final question. Why is this moment looking really bad for the EFF? Firstly, obviously, they've lost Floyd, who was, after Malema, their biggest name and most important voice in the party's structures. Secondly, Floyd has a following. He has plenty of supporters in the fighters. Malema actually mentioned more fighters were expected to leave and follow Shivambu to MK. Mzwanele Manyi already has, although, to be fair, it is Mzwanele Manyi, a man who changes political parties more often than taxis change lanes. Manyi has been in the ANC, ATM, EFF, and now MK, and he started his own short-lived AADC, all since 2019. I swear Mzwanele Manyi just collects political party merch like tops, and he's got them all hanging in his cupboard, and every morning he just closes his eyes and says to himself, which party will I be today? And sticks his hand in, and whatever he grabs and pulls out is his political party for that day. So that's not a very serious transfer switch between the EFF and MK. But it's possible that more serious EFF members will follow Shivambu to MK. Also, there have been reports that some fighters have had enough of Malema's control over the EFF and his tendency to basically cancel people's futures. Reports suggest that some EFF members were really angered when Julius made new recruits Carl Niehaus and Busisiwe Mkhwebane members of parliament ahead of fighters who've been grinding for the Red Berets for years. And now that the EFF went backwards in the May election, they don't look like the inevitable future powerhouse of South African politics anymore, which means frustrated members who used to be willing to put up with stuff that they didn't like, because they kind of thought they would one day benefit from the movement as it grew bigger and bigger. Now they don't know if the movement is going to grow anymore, and so they may be wondering if they would do better in greener pastures, specifically MK greener pastures. And it may be that Shivambu jumping ship causes others to follow, in which case suddenly the EFF will look like a sinking ship and all the sailors are getting off the ship, leaving just the captain, Malema, to go down with it. It's giving, like, for those Game of Thrones fans, it's very Red Wedding-y right now, or maybe more of a Red Funeral. Now, it's not clear that any of this will happen, but it is definitely possible. And yet, Julius Malema remains a wildly talented politician and a powerful, powerful leader. He will probably try to act decisively now to change the narrative. We can expect sweeping changes to the EFF's leadership structures, including a new deputy. And I imagine Julius will also go on the offensive on one or other public issue to change the headlines about the EFF from a crumbling movement to an active, powerful one. He may pull out one of his old faithfuls, like protesting at a cliques or singing Kill the Boer. He knows that he needs to rally people to his flag now and re-establish the narrative of his power and influence. And Julius Malema might be the single most talented politician in South Africa doing exactly that. So that's all you need to know about the bombshell political breakup between Floyd Shivambu and Julius Malema, and why Shivambu's move to the MK party may change the course of South African politics. And that's our show. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow evening, 9:30 p.m., exclusive to DSTV channel 403. And remember, you can watch all of our episodes absolutely free on enca.com. Good night.